We are joined on Matzav.com by Mike Davis, journalist for the Asbury Park Press, and he has been all over the Jackson Township ordinance, actually a two-part ordinance. Mike, thanks very much for being here. We'll get into the
Hey,
details.
Josh, I'm glad to be here, definitely.
Really appreciate it. The ordinance essentially does two things. Number one, it bans all dormitories anywhere in Jackson Township. And number two, it puts a severe limitation on the amount of building as far as building schools goes. You can only do that in a very, very small percentage of Jackson at this point. We'll get to those details a little bit later. Mike, let me just begin by asking, are they denying, does the council even deny the fact that their goal here is to keep ultra-Orthodox Jews from moving in?
Oh, sure. I mean, anytime that's been brought up, the response has always been, this is not about religion at all. It's strictly about development. Jackson's a pretty rural town. It was a little bit more rural a couple decades ago. Now it's much more of a suburbia. They are not saying that, partially because they can't say that. They would get sued. They would have a lot of legal problems.
Right.
And I don't know if that's honestly the case, but I think there's a difference between what they're doing and what the actual, not what the intent would be, but what the actual result would be.
No, I understand that about the dorm, but I kind of want to look at the bigger picture here. I look at a lot of the comments on your articles and the things that people actually said when they had the hearing. And what I hear people talking about is overcrowding. They're not happy with all these big families moving in. They're not happy about congestion. This to me is not about a dormitory. This to me is about not becoming a center for Orthodox Jews.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody would deny that. I mean, in fact, the phrase I hear the most is always, oh, we don't want Jackson to be Lakewood. Now, if I ask them what they mean by that, they'll say, we don't want it to be overcrowded. We don't want to have traffic. If you ask me, there's certain, and
not to be, I'm sorry, you cut out for a second. They don't want Jackson to become like Lakewood. That's what you said?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They say that all the time. I quote that a million times just from last night, let alone the other meeting.
Right. Okay. I got you.
Yeah, but if you look at some of the comments online and some of the things that people say at these meetings, there's for sure an anti-Semitic tone there. I don't know if it's a deliberate anti-Semitism or it's just the kind of thing that they don't realize they're being discriminatory when they say.
But I think the misconception is they say we're not against religion. We just don't like what the ultra-Orthodox Jews bring with them. We don't like the crowds. We don't like the families. We don't like the lifestyle. I think what they don't realize is that makes you a bigot. If I say, well, I have no problem, with Muslims or with African Americans. I just don't like their lifestyle and I just don't like their families. It doesn't matter why. You can have a reason. Every bigot has a reason, but that doesn't take away your bigotry.
Yeah, I mean, I think this, what you're talking about, lifestyle, that kind of thing, that's been brought up to a certain extent. I think a lot of the complaints I've usually heard is usually, we don't want to have all the traffic on the roads. We don't want to have, our school system kind of take a hit. And, that's all. There's also a little bit, there's a fair argument there, but I think the whole thing's been kind of surrounded by anti-Semitism, just with the tone that people talk about it, certain examples to pull up, things like that.
So you actually are seeing this anti-Semitic undertone where at least a lot of the people involved, you're saying, are almost not even hiding their anti-Semitism.
No, I think it's they don't realize that they're being, like you said, they don't realize they're being bigoted. They don't realize that by saying, oh, we don't want to have this community, we don't want to have Jackson turn into Lakewood, which is an Orthodox community. That's inherently bigoted. Yeah, it's inherently discriminatory, and I don't think they realize it. I've met a lot of people in Jackson who are great people that have been on both sides of this issue, and the people that had been supporting this ban on dormitories, none of them strike me as the kind of person that I would be concerned about. I think it's just they're firmly rooted that they don't want the town that they've lived in for all these years to change, and they're willing to do whatever they can to make that happen. And I don't think they realize that the mindset they have is a little bit discriminatory.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on it. That's very often, to me, almost the most dangerous type of racist, anti-Semite, or bigot is the kind that is a nice person, family person, and I guess you could even say they don't mean to do anybody harm, but that's veiled discrimination, but it's discrimination nonetheless. I mean, the people, not to compare, but the people in a lot of, I won't say specific countries, but a lot of countries where they persecuted the Jews, most of the people were just complicit. They weren't outright murderers or persecutors, but they're the ones who really did a lot of the harm. And to me, by the way, this is very similar, because I know it's not technically religious, it's a dorm. To me, this is like if a bunch of African-American families were moving into a neighborhood and they said, all right, you know what? No more basketball courts, because the basketball courts are where African-American kids congregate, and it's probably a healthy thing for them, but, we don't want that in our town. it's going to get too crowded, too much congestion, too much traffic. Bottom line, you're basically keeping out the African Americans. That's who we're targeting here. I mean, here we're targeting the Jews.
I think that's a really good analogy, actually. Yeah, where I had talked to Avi Schnell from Agudat Israel. He even said, like, this is not something that's being planned, whether it's a Christian community, Muslim community, even a Jewish community. There aren't any plans in the works for a school with a dormitory or some sort of separation of the two at all right now. So it's really just a preemptive, we don't want this to happen, so we're not gonna take it on a case-by-case basis, which is what should happen. And we're just gonna try to do it outright before it even happens.
Now, I was told, I spoke to one of the Orthodox members of the Jackson community last night after this thing passed, and he told me that there's going to be a lawsuit. He told me as early as today, or if not next week, this is Friday that we're broadcasting this, recording this, that there's actually going to be a lawsuit filed imminently, and we'll have to see what happens.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And very interestingly, this person also told me that this could really backfire for Jackson Township, because a lot of times he told me yeshivas and schools are actually afraid to build unless there's something on the books that guarantees them that it'll be permitted. They're afraid to build because they don't want to actually be shut down after the fact. Now, if there's a lawsuit and if the Jews win and if this ordinance is struck down, then that'll actually pretty much give them the guaranteed go-ahead, and that could actually bring a lot of yeshivas in who would have been afraid to build otherwise. A final question. Are you amazed that this conversation is happening in 2017? Like you said, I sympathize. Look, I live in the 5 boroughs. There's a lot of crowding and congestion. Not where I live. It's not because of Jews, but I know in other places it is. It's because there are other families. There's a lot of Asians, people who have very large families, and I hate it. I can't stand it. And to me, there's only one solution. I'm not going to go and make laws to drive them out. I'm going to move away, as people have done for hundreds of years. I mean, 2017, is it amazing?
Yeah, I think the thing I have to keep asking myself is basically, if these aren't Orthodox Jews, if they're not a group of people that you could identify solely by looking at them, would it be different? And I don't know. I think it would be different because obviously, there's such a large Orthodox community in Lakewood now in Jackson. The thing I've been telling people is basically there's a lot of really good arguments about this. There should be a concern over your school district. Maybe you're not going to have as many kids coming into the school district, in the public school district, because you're going to have a lot of folks going to private schools. There's concerns about development. There's concern about traffic. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to Lakewood. I have. Going down Route 9 in the middle of the day, it's terrible. Yeah, it's the worst. There's a lot of concerns there. The problem is that often devolves into anti-Semitism. I mean, the couple examples that I give people is I've heard, I've read social media stuff. I've heard people kind of just bring this up nonchalantly. That like, oh yeah, now they're all at Walmart and the lines are long, and like, oh yeah, now I can't get a parking spot somewhere because they're all there. I literally, this is terrible, and I have no problem saying that on the record that it's terrible. Somebody once put an image on one of these Jackson Facebook groups that I'm involved in, where I talk to our readers, that kind of thing, and it had a picture of a Star of David, and it said God's chosen people, and it had a picture of a swastika, and it said Master, what's the difference? And that's terrible. Like the fact that there's this, I think that's the kind of message that anybody, whether you're for or against this, development, anti-development, whether you want a specific people to kind of move into your town, that's the kind of thing you can't have. And in their defense, in that specific situation, a lot of people came out against that and said, this is garbage. You can't be saying these kinds of things. But the entire conversation, the fact that I have to mention anti-Semitism in a relatively normal land use story just kind of says it all, that this is even an issue is sort of strange.
100%. Yeah. And like you said, Facebook comments, every once in a while, I'll read a story about Israel. I'll read stories about, different Jewish matters, Jewish issues, and then I'll see the comments. And sometimes you'll see these virulent people. But you're right. It's almost the ones that scare me the most are the ones who say, no, I'm not a hater. I love people. I'm not an anti-Semite. It's just that, I don't want any Jews in my backyard. But anyway, I do appreciate your candor very, very much, your objectivity, and most of all, your coverage has been phenomenal. I mean, I love reading your articles.
Thank you, Josh.
You're really great, talented journalist. And we're going to keep up to date with you as this story unfolds.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is far from the first time this kind of thing's been brought up. I mean, it's not the first time I've used anti-Semitism in a headline involving Jackson. I don't think it's going to be the last time. But, Asbury Park Press, app.com. I'm all over Twitter. I'm all over Facebook. You can find me.
Thanks for the plug.
Stay tuned.
app.com. What's your Twitter handle?
At by Mike Davis, BY like a byline.
Perfect. Mike Davis, Asbury Park Press. Thanks for being here.